Hey guys, I'm back. This time I'll be talking about JRPGs that were also ruined like in the last video, but by two things, not one. Two major things in them that completely destroyed my experience and made me quit. So let's begin. Number 10. Luffy at the Fortress of Doom. I once read that Luffy 2 was the prequel of the entire series, so that's the one I started with. Man, what an amazing game it was. So I became a fan after finishing it, and of course I jumped straight into the first game. To my surprise, the story and characters felt childish, tropey and silly this time, but that didn't bother me. What ruined this classic turn-based RPG for me were two things. First, the encounter rate. When I played this game for the first time, I already had a lot of experiences with random encounters and I always disliked them. In Luffy, however, the rate was just too high and out of place. Sometimes it will leave you alone for a while, but then it will come back in your face over and over. When trying to solve a puzzle or go from point A to point B, your exploration is ruined by constant battles. And speaking about battles, the second thing that destroyed my experience is precisely the combat. It's generic turn-based, so that's fine, but you can't select the specific enemy you want to attack, only a group of enemies. Several other JRPGs have this nonsense, like most of the Dragon Quest games, but I never found them as annoying as in here because the AI of your allies is just dumb. Often they will mess it all up and end up prolonging the battle or straight up dying. Thank goodness Luffy 2 was a much better game and corrected all of the mistakes seen in this one because it's honestly very disrupting. Number 9. God Eater Resurrection. Sure, this series surpassed my expectations and I ended up becoming a fan, but it was mostly thanks to this game's sequels. This remake of the old PSP title is something I abandoned for something I complained about recently in another video. It's a very challenging game, no easy or hard mode here, it is what it is, man. Truthfully though, it doesn't get hard until after the first credits. Oh yeah, I beat the final boss, or what I thought was the final boss. I got the credits, but the game still continued afterwards. It turns out that was only the first out of 3 arcs in this remake. Second arc then, feeling totally like a post-game, was brutal. Good, lock the true ending like that, you filthy jackasses, you're so goddamn funny! But you know what? The difficulty isn't exactly the second thing that killed this game for me. God Eater 2 has a similar problem, and it's frustrating, but I ended up loving it anyway. Same with the third one. However, it is precisely because of the difficulty of this one that I really couldn't stand its leveling system. There just isn't any! You don't gain experience, you don't level up. Instead, you gain money and materials to improve your weapons and shields. But in the second arc, the game forces you to replay several missions over and over again to get enough of these rare materials. And on top of it all, they only appear by mere chance! Holy shit, man! That totally ruined this action RPG for me. Seriously! Number 8. Dusk Diver 2. This isn't a Japanese RPG, so it shouldn't be here, but when else am I gonna have the chance to complain about it? I'd rather not talk about it since I really like the first game, an indie RPG from Taiwan. The same Taiwanese studio developed this sequel, now with a bigger budget and with Idea Factory as their publisher. However, they must have received several complaints about the first game being kinda easy, cause it honestly was, but that never bothered me. Nevertheless, they made this one way harder to a point it ended up being completely broken. The first thing that killed it for me is the enemy design. It's beyond stupid because they take forever to kill and barely put up a fight. They just stand there while you beat the crap out of them and do nothing except taking years to die. But then you get to the bosses and some of them are ridiculously hard, with fast-paced patterns that make no sense and are almost impossible to memorize. Man, what's up with that? On day 1, they released a patch to take some HP away from regular enemies, but bosses remained intact and brutal. So not only was this awesome action RPG ruined by the enemy design, but also by its horrible unbalance. It frustrated me big time because, like I said, I really liked the first one, and seeing as this was a direct sequel with higher production values, I just thought it would be better. Number 7. Dragon Quest VI. One of the two things that killed the 6th entry in the beloved Dragon Quest series is the encounter rate. Just like in Luffy, it's insane, and dare I say, it's far worse in here. It's pathetic how the people who ported this game from the Super Famicom to the Nintendo DS couldn't fix that issue. The majority of the time, every 3 seconds you walk into a battle. Sure, it has high-speed mode, so you can cheese them and they end up quickly, including the load times, but it's still a pain in the ass to explore anywhere while running into monsters so often. I guess the second thing I could complain about will be its cryptiness. It's one of those where the heck do I go type of games, but to be honest, it's nowhere near as bad as other JRPGs out there. So the real second thing that killed this game for me is something other titles in the series have as well. There are no save points before boss battles. You exit town, traverse the world, go through the entire dungeon full of random encounters, get the boss and die. Yep, you guessed it, you have to do the entire thing again. I played the original DS version and you can save and quit, but that's about it. Once you reload that file, it's gone forever. So I guess the only solution to this second issue is to emulate and use save states. Number 6. Metal Max Xeno Reborn. First of all, I'd like to say that I'll never understand why a game that wasn't even 5 years old was remade for the same modern systems. Well, this time they also released it on the Switch. My first complaint is the convoluted tank equipment system. I just don't get it. It was just as bad in the original game, but at least I made a lot of progress on it. In this remake, I just couldn't. Maybe it's because I don't like systems like this where you need to be changing weapons and armor for almost every boss battle or enemy you encounter out there. It plays around a lot with elemental strengths and weaknesses, but most of the time you're barely doing any damage anyway. Just like in Dusk Diver 2, the enemy design here is beyond absurd. Enemies die in 1 or 2 hits quickly without posing a single threat. Well, at least they give you tons of experience so you level up real quick here. I love that. But it helped nothing whatsoever against any goddamn boss battle out there. Even the elite monsters around are extremely difficult to take down. What is up with the balance in this game? Seriously? After several attempts with different weapons and armor, I still stood no chance against any boss, optional or not. So I ended up quitting probably forever. Number 5. The Last Remnant. The Last Remnant was originally released on the Xbox 360 and that's the version I'll cover today. I know it was remastered on PS4, Switch and Steam digitally, but I don't think they fixed the issues that ruined it for me. First and foremost, the battle system. It's unnecessarily complex. You basically control a group of characters, each out of your direct control. I mean, you do select their actions and their targets, but you cannot select which character will attack which. Kinda like in Luffy. So they end up doing whatever they want and messing up badly sometimes. There's a morale bar and the higher it is, the better they perform. But manipulating it is a pain in the ass. I really have no idea how to properly do it. I don't like this battle system and it almost killed the game for me. However, what put the final nail in the coffin? Well, remember the last video with Final Fantasy VIII? Same problem here, my man. Enemies level up with you. And I seriously hate that. What's the point of fighting regular enemies then? Might as well skip them all and go straight for the bosses. But since the bosses are completely out of balance, it destroys everything you ever worked for. Like I said before in my review a long time ago, this game is garbage and it needs to be destroyed! Number 4. Valkyrie Profile, Covenant of the Plume. I know, just like with Torna on the previous video, this is one I've bitched about way too many times now, so I'll be quick. Two things ruined it for me. First, the enemy design, their moves, their attacks, their stats. Some of them are too easy and some others are too hard on the same maps. They have a weird-ass combination of enemies that go from the average Joe to the hard-ass elite bastard. Problem is, it wasn't supposed to be this way, so the balance is absurd. As senseless as it is, the title of this game is the second problem. Covenant of the Plume means you have to use the damn magical plume to sacrifice one of your allies to make your MC more powerful. Well, it doesn't help that much because of the first issue that I mentioned, so overpowering Wilfred is almost pointless. Previous Valkyrie Profile games gave you more party members to sacrifice. In here, you have a very limited amount, and since this is a strategy RPG, that pretty much defeats the purpose of the more the merrier. God damn it, man, let's move on. Number 3, Breath of Fire 2. This one is pretty easy to explain actually. It's a game I abandoned a long time ago because of the issues I'll mention today. Then its fans convinced me to give it another chance, but eventually the very same issues made me rage quit again. You probably already know that the encounter rate is devastating here. The game has a bad reputation precisely because of that and made a lot of gamers quit on early stages. I think I got halfway through, but I still ended up quitting because the rate was just crazier than in most JRPGs out there. That's right, crazier than in Dragon Quest VI. The second thing that ruined this game for me is the backtracking. You'll reach one point where you won't have to do this anymore and simply come back to base quickly. But for a really long time, you'll be walking, that's right, walking, not running, back and forth to every single location over and over and over again. The combination of that with its lunatic encounter rate blows your patience away. I don't know why these two issues felt more manageable in the first game. I think it's because they were far worse in this one. Number 2, Kingdom Hearts. I really enjoyed the second game because that's the first one I played. I didn't become the biggest fan of the idea of mixing Disney with Final Fantasy. While creative, it just didn't appeal to me because it made everything really childish and boring. So when I played the first entry in the series, that was the first thing that started killing it for me. The second game felt darker and slightly more mature, so it was more interesting, I guess, but the first game felt safer and more cartoonish. They were just testing the waters with this one, it seemed. The irony is that despite being a game whose target audience are kids, this first entry is full of difficulty spikes! The majority of what I played was either easy or balanced, but some bosses were straight up frustrating and monotonous. The fights were beyond tedious and the controls made nothing better. They aren't bad, but Sora can be hard to control sometimes. I have no idea if later re-releases of this game improved controls or difficulty, but the original PS2 version had this problem. I got stuck in a boss battle and absolutely nothing made me keep trying. I lost all interest because maybe deep inside I never really cared for this game at all, so I eventually lost interest in the rest of the series as well. Number 1, Final Fantasy XV. I am very tolerant when it comes to bad storytelling as long as the gameplay is great in the game. This last main entry had a cool combat since it was mostly just hack and slash and summons, which is cool. But the characters are the first thing that ruined this game for me. They just seem like a bunch of freaking posers to me, a bunch of Backstreet Boys dressed up in black. It's face-palming and cringe-worthy. With them also being heavily stereotyped, I found them very unlikable. Things can get edgy sometimes, but it just feels so forced, and I cringe, like I said. The second issue that killed this game for me was the gameplay itself. As I said, the battle system I have no problem with, it's fine, but the open world exploration overstays its welcome most of the time. I'm supposed to be playing a Final Fantasy game and instead I'm playing Grand Theft Auto, pushing over a car and getting a super sexy girl to fix it. I mean, what the hell is this? It's like this game has absolutely no clue what exactly it wants to be. I just couldn't continue playing anymore and quit. Final Fantasy died for me after 10. Everything after that game just felt completely different, especially since its creator left the company. Everything has been a crazy ass experiment afterwards, some games being good and some being bad. 15 took the cake for me because while not a bad game, that's the first time I really felt I was playing the wrong game. So those were my 10 picks for today's video, 10 JRPGs that were ruined for me because of only 2 things. There's a comment section down there where you can bitch about my picks or talk about your own if you want to. But don't forget, these games were ruined for me personally. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!